What's up everyone, Sean here, and today in this video we're going to be talking about finally Borderlands 3. Now before I really get into it, I just wanted to explain what really happened with this video. I had it all recorded, with this whole live, camera feed and everything, with the green screen and all. Most of it just for some reason didn't process properly in my camera. Like I probably was just being jumpy about it, so I didn't let it process it all the way, or give it enough time, which shouldn't be the case, but that's what my assumption is for right now. And so I guess it corrupted the file. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and that pretty much delayed the production of things. So that's why I have to reshoot it again, and they'll probably jump to a older cut by the end of it, and you'll probably see some differences in the lighting a little bit and the mic. So sorry about the little delay, but anyway, let's get into this review. So I finally beat it. Well, now it's several weeks as I record this, but nonetheless I did complete the main story of things and a number of side quests, and I've done a number of things post game. And so now I'm here to answer the question for myself, as this is the latest Borderlands game right now on the PS4 and all the other systems, or major systems, right? So with that said, is this the latest and greatest Borderlands game out there right now? Well, we're about to find out after this word of history. The Borderlands franchise started back in 2009 with the release of its first game, just titled Borderlands. Before its development, Gearbox Software co-founder Randy Pitchford was inspired by other RPG games, NetHack, as well as action RPGs such as Diablo and Ultima. Earlier in his career, he worked at 3D Realms to develop games like Duke Nukem 3D and Shadow Warrior, which explains the first-person shooter format of the Borderlands games. He was challenged by his own strong desire combining RPGs and shooters with their stark contrasts and core gameplay loop lengths. RPGs tend to be long and devious, while shooters were short and linear. But with Pitchford's tenacity, a fusion was somehow met and thus created the foundation what has become known as Borderlands. In 2005, this idea was initially pitched as Halo meets Diablo. After Pitchford laid it out for the team, they decided and were set on making it foremost a first-person shooter game, which was probably the best approach, as the 7th generation was much defined as the era of first-person shooters thanks to the Modern Warfare lineup of the Call of Duty franchise. Then came the story. Its inspiration came from the thought-provoking Pandora's Box of Greek mythology, and thus creating Pandora, the first and main world of Borderlands throughout the series. The story was an afterthought, having to define it later on during its development with a focus on fusing the gameplay aspects of RPGs and shooters. They wanted to make the players feel the need to kill monsters to collect loot, so they centered the story around vault hunters and make the world of Pandora one giant box to open to see what it has to offer, which was the satisfaction of collecting loot mainly in the form of guns, after provoking much chaos or violence in this case. Later down the line, they felt that the game began resembling too much of Fallout 3 and Rage, as it firstly had a more realistic look, somewhat borrowing from the Gears of War and Mass Effect series. So they decided to go with a cel-shaded look after Pitchford and his team was inspired by Code Hunters, an animated short film by Ben Hibben. After much visual refining thanks to a comic book artist and further gameplay development such as skill trees, Borderlands was born. In under 2K Games publication, the game was released in October 20th, 2019 instead of the initial 2008 release window. The rest is history. With the legendary release of Borderlands 2, the franchise really set itself on the map of gamers, as it was the genre definition of the looter shooter standard. After 4 more spin-off titles, and a game in between those, we were aching to see another main Borderlands game for the 8th generation. Then 2015, Gearbox had begun producing Borderlands 3 with much of Diablo 3 in mind, also taking note of modern games in terms of gameplay mechanics from games such as Titanfall. sometime before its announcement, there were rumors just naturally floating around on the internet. And whenever these rumors pop around, I always think, I really hope this lands in the PS4 and I guess all the other major systems, right? And, you know, I think it's safe to say that we all been waiting for a main Borderlands game for this generation. For me anyway, there was really nothing like it. You know, there are games that came out that try to be like Borderlands or kind of be like Borderlands, or at least be the next greatest looter shooter. Two of them including Destiny, which I didn't get into, but you know, watch my friends play it, and they had their own opinions about it. Not good overall, and they're not playing it to this day. Let's just say. And also the other big one was Anthem. That was, well, not much needs to be said honestly by this point. The roadmap is on the halt, and that's all there is to it. That's how much significance it has nowadays. Very unfortunate since it came out in what, February or something like that of earlier this year. So point being, there's really nothing like it that really can compete for me when it comes to this sort of genre anyway. So naturally, when these rumors popped in on the internet, my thirst for these looter shooters needed much for quenching.
Then it was announced and revealed at PAX East on March 28 of 2019 after much trailers and hype, but also controversies along the way. The game was released on September 13, 2019 and has met with much success, having over 5 million copies sold in 5 days after release, making it the fastest 2K selling title ever to date.
Alright, and now, is this the latest and greatest Borderlands game out there right now? As I ask that question once more. And my overall consensus is absolutely. However, it's not really without saying that this game is perfect. There are really obvious faults that I have to really address for Borderlands 3. So allow me to get those out of the way first for this video, which is kind of a first. And then I'll get to the good parts anyway.
Now listen up, recruit.
As great of a game Borderlands 3 is, it is riddled with bugs and glitches, especially during the start. I can recount major ones along the way as I was trying to do main story and also side quests as well. One of them being involving with, it was like in the jungle or something, and I had to like deal with a lot of those monkey enemy types, or apes I should say. And once I got to the big, you know, king of those monsters or whatever, it dropped some sort of like quest item, right? And it usually would drop by your feet or whatever, but it dropped through the floor, which was really odd. And the thing was, it was just right there. I could still see it, and you know, it was like right under the floorboard. Maybe some people may get a hint of what I'm talking about, but the item was right below the floorboard, and I couldn't reach it. You know, as excruciating as it was, I wasted so much time trying to just reach it. It's like, you know, trying to reach that like that last Pringle in the Pringle jar or whatever, you know, without like messing up your hand or anything like that. You have to like really like, you know, rotate the, you know, thing around, right? And you can't quite do that here. So I was just frustrated by this glitch, and the only thing I could do was just restart the game. And even with restarting the game, it didn't entirely put the item back to the correct place. It was like all the way down on the floor, like where the swamp was or whatever, what the water was. And even though that wasn't the spot, I could still reach it. I had to go all the way down and go back up the level, but I got the item no less. So that was a really major, just sort of glitch. So that wasted a lot of my time. So that really tells you what kind of glitches you would have run into. Assuming by the time you guys watch this video, hopefully a lot of those glitches are gone. But I think point being, during the launch anyway, it was pretty bad.
This glitch was more recent as I was in Slaughterstar 3000, which was an enemy horde level, and the game for some reason was ahead of itself. So instead of wave 4, the game thought I was in wave 5 already. So in the process of having extra enemies along the way, I was able to beat that side quest without even having to face Big Red and Big Blue, which are the giant bosses. Weird, right? So technically I didn't beat the quest, but the game says I did, so I'll take it, I guess. I can also recount one of my friends having a problem starting the game, so he had to do some mini ritual of sorts involving with switching out characters, and then he got it going again. On top of the menu glitches, there are just a number of other glitches and bugs that are present in the game even now.
Another major problem players have complained about was its optimization across the board. There were frame issues up the ass.
Early on in the game, it was absolutely bad at times, especially during the big heat of the action. However, this seems to have been ironed out on the PS4 to say the least. There may be some hiccups here and there, but it's noticeably better for me for the most part. I don't know about the PC and other systems.
Now please, for the love of everything that is sacred, please fix the fucking menu. It's oh so sluggish as hell. Maybe a weapon wheel would have been nice, you know, something like similar to that of Monster Hunter, which, you know, would allow you to switch guns out real easily, because there's a lot of situations where you know, you want to use this gun for this situation or that situation. And, you know, for example, you have the shock gun or whatever, or the shock type of gun to take out their shields. And once their shields are down, you want to switch over to the gun that just sprays bullets and does a lot of damage or whatever. In those situations, a weapon wheel would have been really cool. But really, one of the biggest problems here in this point is the entire menu itself is just so damn slow.
The next beef I have with this game is its main story. Borderlands 2 definitely set the bar when it came to writing and story quality. I enjoyed much of that story thanks to its main villain, Handsome Jack, who is still referred and referenced to this very day in these storylines. So it's understandable if people were expecting something great out of this main story here. And unfortunately, you're not going to find that here. The main story harbors around the Calypso twins, Tyreen and Troy. Of course, just like everyone in this universe, they want the vault, blah blah blah. However, these guys are sirens. Well, sort of. Tyreen is the true siren, meanwhile Troy is considered the parasitic twin, which was how he became a siren only by proxy, but nonetheless became the first siren under some special circumstances, which makes him an oddity in this series because sirens are usually female and supposedly only 6 of them can exist at a time in this universe. And whenever one siren dies, their powers will pass on to the next random person unless they choose a successor to inherit their power before their death. Anyway, there were some interesting things about these twins, but overall, they just don't even cut it to some degree. They're just flat out annoying and not cool. By now, we all know they're supposed to be making fun of the streamers on Twitch or just content creators in real life. There's really not much going on with these two beyond what was already said. I just couldn't bring myself to ever like them to a great degree. This whole persona, their whole character just comes off as cringy and just very campy in a bad way, and just flat out just didn't work this time around.
Now, spoiler time. You can skip the spoilers if you hit this timestamp right here, or it should be in the comment section below, but around this timestamp, whatever it is on the screen, you can avoid these spoilers I'm about to spill.
Next up, Promethea! Don't forget to like, follow, and obey.
Anyway, so later in the main story of things, you get to meet the first and legendary Vault Hunter, Typhon de Leon. He spills the beans on the situation that you're in, and of course, you get to know the man himself. And I guess the biggest twist here, or at least one of them anyway, in the entire game, is that the twins are his children. he is the father of the Calypso twins. Typhon had to keep them at bay because, well, they're sirens, and naturally that's probably you want to do, right? As a father of two, right? So he did that on the planet Tefeo, and the name kind of, it's hard to have it stick in your head, but anyway, Tefeo is where he kept them safe, and pretty much these sirens, their motivation comes from being confined, and they had their little daddy issues with Typhon. And that's kind of pretty much why they became villains in the first place. They just want to go out and do, things that are exciting to them or whatever. That's pretty much it. So I just don't buy it, There's just not much to dive into it after that. Now, putting that aside for now, if I had to really pick the most interesting twin, anyway, I really have to go with Troy if I really had to try hard about or think hard about it, because Troy, he is first off the editor, he is the writer, he's the one who crafted the propaganda, that the children of the Vault are behind, and the stuff that you see with Tyreen, he wrote that, he crafted all that, and Tyreen is just a face. So in this little play here, I guess you can say. So while, yes, Tyreen is the face, and Troy, he's everything else. He's the voice, he's the spine, he's everything else. He's, he's the mechanic, and Tyreen is the driver. So together, they run the children of the Vault. So as much charisma Tyreen had, Troy himself wasn't too far behind from that. So he was looked at as some sort of leader figure as well. And on top of the fact that he is the only male siren for right now, which is really interesting. I mean, yes, sure, he's the weaker twin, and so he has to feed off of his sister, and because his sister is, the true siren, that makes him a siren by proxy. So at one point they were together when they're born, and so they had to separate somehow. I think Typhon performed the procedure. Once that happened, I guess Troy, being the weaker twin, he's the one who has to leech off of his sister. And so with that, I guess he's looked at as the younger sibling of the twins, naturally. But I think that kind of goes away after he absorbs Maya's powers, and in the process killing her too, which is, gosh. But I think that goes away, but I could be wrong, because I think during his final boss battle, I think he did start to absorb Tyreen's powers more and more, just so he can just stay powerful. And at one point, Tyreen is like, "Oh, it hurts," or whatever, or something like that. So I think even then, after becoming a full-fledged siren, he still needed his sister to make sure he doesn't go out like a freaking old light bulb or something. Anywho, Tyreen. She's just a bitch. She's just a bitch. An annoying bitch at that.
You barely scraped together a team for this bet, and now they're all gonna die. You suck.
But even so, either way, they really don't offer to the table as the main villains in this little story. It's really disappointing. And not to mention, the story itself had a lot of unnecessary points or things that are meant to be shock factors in this here story. And they really tried to make it spicy, you know what I mean? It just really didn't add up, in my opinion. I just really did not buy it. I just felt like it was sort of shoehorned almost, as motivation for the other characters and something like that, or just to bring up this little story arc or whatever for some characters, especially during the death of Maya and also later on the death of Typhon. Another major complaint regarding to the main story is just the lack of presence of your main character once again. None of the main 4 Vault Hunters here are ever present in the story cutscenes, as decent as they look most of the time. What is that about? What the hell is that all about?
throughout the main story, characters go through some real shit, you know, even death at that. But none of these times your main Vault Hunter is ever there for them. But they just, for some reason, they just play it off as if you got their back, you know what I mean? So it just really does not feel that way at all, and you can't really immerse yourself into the main story that way, because literally, you're not there. And it's like as if you're like kind of just like a surveillance camera looking into these, you know, story cutscenes, and they just, for some reason, pretend that you're a part of it for some reason. On top of that, this opens up a major plot hole in this here main story. Amara. Where's Amara in all this? Where is she? Like, seriously, she's one of the major sirens, you know, one of the 6 main sirens of this universe, right? And so isn't it strange for the Calypso twins just not mention her at all, right? Or have them at least have her on the bounty poster or something like that, along with the other main Vault Hunters, you know? And of course, you know, adding to that fact, they don't even attempt to capture her or absorb her powers, like kind of like what Troy did to Maya or Tyreen did to Lilith, right? You know, maybe it wasn't the exact power that they wanted, but she's a siren, man. She's one of the most powerful figures, so it would be natural for them to go after her as well. You know, she's a main character and all. But no, I guess it just never happened because, you know, the main character never appears in the story cutscenes. So all of that really adds up to make Amara look very trivial amongst the sirens here that exist in this universe. So this was kind of a problem back in Borderlands 2. Your main character wasn't there pretty much, right? What makes it worse for Borderlands 2 is that they didn't even have anything to contribute for dialogue when it came to these side quests, which that's something they fixed in here, right? So it was kind of a problem, but the way the story went, you kind of didn't care, and it actually kind of worked in a way, even though it would have been nice if your main character interacted somehow in those cutscenes. But point being, for here, the story, how it's written, it really seemed like it needed the main characters to appear, because these situations that happened, how they rolled out, it could have been easily prevented if the main character was there, or at least have your main character try to prevent it, and it would have been a lot more engaging, right? Including Amara here. She is one of the main sirens, and I'm still blown away that they just didn't even mention her at all in any of the cutscenes, especially from the Calypso twins. I think they should have really considered trying to alter the cutscenes a little bit with each main Vault Hunter that you pick. You know, slightly alter them at least. Maybe that sounds a little difficult, but I don't know. If you're gonna execute this sort of storytelling, I feel like it really needs to be considered in future Borderlands games. That way, it could add a little more variety and give a little more reason for each character to be chosen, because maybe their cutscenes might be interesting, right? But they're all the same. They're all kind of mundane, no matter what you do, and your main character is not even there anyway. So fuck all that, right?
The story definitely needed more oomph and seemed like the writing was an afterthought, but as long as the main villains just make fun of the content creators and streamers, it's all for a good laugh, right? Speaking of laughing, there was little to laugh at in comparison to its previous titles. Borderlands is known for its quirky, cheesy, tongue-in-cheek humor that pokes fun at a lot of pop culture and such other things. But here in Borderlands 3, a number of these dialogues, or humorous dialogue exchanges or whatever, just never really quite hit as well as it should have.
I will never forgive Katagawa for destroying Lazy Riverland. I used to take my team there to unwind, and now I'm wound and all out of bagels!
Maybe because I'm much older now playing this in comparison to when I was playing Borderlands 2. I mean, 7 years can do a number on
how you look at things, especially when you're about to hit around 30. Also, there are just a number of things that were building up from previous games, but just then completely dropped out for no apparent reason. Also, a number of characters get way less spotlight here as much as they deserve it. Even Claptrap? Like, where in the hell is he in all this? Other than the beginning, sure, and some parts here and there, but still. It's really weird to see Claptrap getting shafted in comparison to what happened in Borderlands 2. He had much to go off of in Borderlands 2, but here, it's such a contrast for Claptrap here. I want to see more of him, but you only get to kind of pass by him, and also there were just really small bits here and there in the story cutscenes, but other than that, that's really much it for our annoying robot here that we love. There is just too much idolizing with Lilith and Tannis, and a new teenage girl and apprentice of Maya, Ava. What, the previous Vault Hunters from the previous games don't mean shit to the Borderlands storyline now? Did Lilith ever talk about Roland at all at some point? There's just so much left out of this story. And once Ava got her powers from Maya, it just didn't feel complete and well deserved, in my opinion. And speaking of characters, what happened to certain characters that were just really cool and impressionable, such as Athena and Fiona? Fiona? Where is she? Like, what happened to Fiona of all characters? How can Borderlands leave her out like that while Reese and Vaughn get all the glory when it comes to the Tales of Borderlands presentation? And what about Axton and Salvador? You know, do they not mean anything? I guess Maya and Zero are the more important ones, so they're just gonna shaft the other two and throw these two in there. Even Krieg was like at least somewhat mentioned in there with a audio log of sorts, if you find it in somewhere in the world. All I can say is the main story is just super meh, and it needed more thought put into it. You know, have your main character in there actually in the main story cutscenes, provide a more compelling backstory, you know, so on and so forth.
Don't forget to like, follow, and obey.
Okay, I think I got all the major complaints that I had in mind, you know, kind of out of my system for the most part. So with that, let's move on to the parts that I really liked about for when it comes to Borderlands 3.
This time, no more dying, and a lot more fucking killing!
Borderlands 3 really made most of their time updating the gameplay aspect of things, and it really shows. And overall, the gunplay, the RPG aspect of things were really, really fun and very much gratifying. The four main Vault Hunters, Zane, Flak, Amara, and lastly Mose, all offer very unique skills to the table and make great fun in their own right. And my first choice was my mecha piloting, ass-kicking chick, Mose. I think it's safe to say that I tend to lean more towards the mechanic-heavy classes like engineers and whatnot. Like in Borderlands 2, Axton was my first pick. It was fun for me at the time. Here, Mose, the gunner, was absolutely fun. I love her mech Iron Bear, also her abilities as well. I went for the green skill tree and some of the blue skill tree in this run. I really wanted to get that forge ability, which allowed you to regenerate ammo consistently or constantly for the gun you're currently holding. Man, I just wish that Iron Bear had a self-destruct that was like a big explosion. You know, whenever you eject yourself, like in Titanfall, you can switch that, you know, back and forth with auto bear or something. Maybe that could have been too powerful and cheap or whatever, but this is a co-op, or you know, you're fighting PvE or whatever. So I don't know. I think those kind of things are just fine, in my opinion. Again, Mose is really fun. Her mech can have different weapons attached, like rocket launchers, grenade launchers, flamethrowers, miniguns, and even their bear claws. Depending on which tree you go for, these weapons can take different mods for some awesome effects like explosive bullets. The claw can grab enemies towards yourself. Your friends can mount your mech to use the mounted machine gun. But putting that aside, you can craft your own build for each character, as it seems to be much more flexible this time around. You can easily reset your trees and rebuild to further experiment to see what fits your playstyle. Even with the current level cap at 50, I think I have a pretty decent build if I say so myself. Any of these characters can feel really powerful if you can build them right. But I'd say just have fun with it and just get the stuff that you want. I really can't wait for the devs to up the level cap later on, just like what they did with Borderlands 2. There were a number of quality of life updates or changes that really made the experience a lot better. One of the obvious ones is the slide and vault maneuvers your characters can do. It's such a simple update, but it's just so much better. It really does make a difference in mobility, and it really adds to the experience. It just makes it a faster pace kind of game, but in a good way. Taking some notes from other great FPS games really paid off, huh? I also like the knife slam that you can do. I don't use it often, but when I remember to do so, it's pretty cool, especially with the mods or relics that you can add to that attack for different effects. Your central hub is the Sanctuary 3, which is a spaceship that allows you to travel to different worlds. It also has the Lost Loot Machine, which is a blessing to many because those precious guns and other loot can get lost to cliffs and other dangerous places where you really can't reach for. It was confusing to find the rooms at first in the Sanctuary 3, but you'll find all the necessary features of the hub to your liking once you get used to it. Speaking of loot, finding loot is still a fun aspect in these games, and the guns are just crazier than ever. You'll find more abilities, more gimmicks thrown on there with, of course, thrown in different combinations. So there are lots of guns to be found, especially those main legendary guns. And it's just all so satisfying. And not to mention the shields, the relics, the class mods, and so on and so forth, right? It is guns galore. They could have easily put these guns in microtransactions in form of these loot boxes that you have to pay them for pretty much, or you're enticed to buying these loot boxes through real money, like all of the major main games or whatever, mainstream games that we see nowadays. With those kind of games, man, they really, leave a bad taste in my mouth. And it's weird. It's actually kind of surprising that they actually didn't go that route. But they know what they're doing. They're not that stupid, and they were not gonna stoop that low. Especially with all the backlash that all these other companies have been getting, especially with EA, with Battlefront and so much more, right? So really, it's very, very gratifying to see these guns to be picked up in the old-fashioned way. Again, they could have done it so easily, but essentially the enemies that you shoot are loot boxes in essence, and that's enough for me. So gladly they did not do that. Enemy variety is pretty decent, although the bosses are something to behold. Some may say that minions act all the same, which I wouldn't disagree entirely. It can't be denied that there are unique enemies amongst each faction. Shooting them all down is equally as fun either way. Co-op play works and is a fun experience to be had. You can ping your peeps to loot just like you would in Apex or something like that, which is a very handy feature. When it comes to the design and aesthetics, oh boy, even with the gritty, cartoony cel shading still remaining, it went through a notable visual upgrade. Thanks to the Unreal 4 engine, more details are added, and the textures and the lighting effects are just fantastic. It really shows off the new level designs, and the world really sells it well. The PS4 Pro really adds to the experience, giving you the option to run the game at 60 FPS whenever it can get there. But with the patches and updates out, this is the way to go now. Because the graphics are cel shaded, you're really not missing out on finer details, and it still looks awesome in the frame rate priority mode. So upping the frame rate should be your go-to. The character and gun designs are overall fantastic and further complemented by the graphical updates. They really did a great job with the guns, since that's what you're looking for, or what you're looking at the most, details and all. You can also change your guns and characters visually with a number of skins and trinkets. As mentioned, you got the Sanctuary 3, so you can travel from planet to planet, making the game feel a lot vaster than ever before. Each planet looks great to their own degree, offering diversity of environments.
One of the aspects that I love about the game here is the sound effects. The gun sounds were so superb, and the reloading, the piece of resistance. Of course, I cannot forget the complimenting to the voice actors here. With the material given here, they did fantastic. Even with the weak writing here, but with the given stuff, they did really, really great. But there is one thing I do want to point out, and it's Troy Baker. Where is he in all this too? Like, it's just really weird because it started, well, at least for me anyway, it started with Yuri Lowell. He used to voice him, but he wasn't recasted. And then it happened again with I think another character or something. Oh yeah, I think even before, he voiced Kanji from Persona 4. He didn't get recasted, right? I think they got Matthew Mercer to voice him, Kanji. And then in this case here, Reese was formerly voiced by Troy Baker in Tales of Borderlands. But now in here, he's voiced by someone else. It's I don't know. I find it really odd. Am I missing something here? Like, what's with Troy Baker and him not being recasted? I just really find it strange. At least he's voicing Joel again for Last of Us 2. But point being, I just really find it odd that a lot of his characters aren't being recasted by him or with him. But anyway. Back onto here, I digress. So I love the new characters that were in this game, including Wainwright Jacobs, voiced by David Wald. He was, fantastic as that character. Really bought his, southern vibes and how he did things and stuff like that. His abilities, with the shotgun and all that stuff. His backstory about his eyesight and everything, and his relationship with Sir Hammerlock. I think that's pretty cool. It's interesting, and I think it's another neat little addition to the story here. I actually realized that Sir Hammerlock was gay, and same with Jacobs. But doesn't really matter. Past that, but it's still pretty cool and interesting that they diversify to that extent and provide these characters in these stories. So Wainwright was pretty freaking awesome. I love his introduction. I love the way they utilize his character during his portion of the story. I just bought him as a character for this main story. Next one I have to really mention is Balix. He was wonderfully picked and voiced by Ice-T himself. It's really cool because he foremost, he's not a voice actor. He's a singer/rapper, right? He's more towards the music industry of things. So naturally, you think of him that way. But Ice-T did a really good job at, voice acting here as, the teddy bear. Like the cybernetic teddy bear, I guess you can say. I really liked his part as well. And Ice-T really
really made it work, and it was just such a natural fit for him. The casting there was a great job. In this case, when it comes to Ice-T, particularly. Typhon, I loved as well. He was voiced by Paul Mercier. I hope I'm getting his name right. You know, I love the whole like kind of Danny DeVito / Joe Pesci sort of vibe that they gave him. You know, aside from his his physical size and everything, but other than that, he's definitely his own character as well. He's not exactly like a rip off of those actors or anything of the sort. He's just very like happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and even with the most dire situations, he's kind of seem casual about it. You know what I mean? And that sort of vibe, and that's what I kind of like about him too. I mean, I guess it kind of gives off more of that Borderlands sort of humor that I like, or at least in this case, Typhon was just a really awesome character overall. But even so, like with the other characters that I didn't mention, they did a really awesome job with the characters and the voice acting and everything.
Many of these characters gave a way better backstory than what Tyreen and Troy had to offer, which brings me to the next point. The side stories were more entertaining to me than the main story. I think this is where the Borderlands humor that I love is buried in. They even had a side story for Handsome Jack and the previous Siren, Angel, which further supports their significance in the mythos of Borderlands. The original soundtrack is something not to overlook as well, although there are some weird song choices, especially with the end credits. You'll know what I'm talking about. Oh, and one more thing. The post-game or New Game Plus experiences, pretty good if I so say myself. You get a Garden ranking, which replaces the Badass rank from previous games. As you level up from there, you can add more and more stat boosts to your character permanently, and it can go on and on and on, which is cool. More difficulty modes are unlocked after beating the main game, and they'll help with collecting more legendary guns a whole lot.
Before I wrap things up here, I do want to address one complaint. It's minor. It's not gonna affect the score or anything like that. But I do want to talk about it no less. One of the wish lists, or one of the biggest wishes I have from this game, is to be able to upgrade your guns further. These guns, man, they're as awesome as there are. They get power creep so quickly when you're leveling up, especially when you get those legendary guns early. So it's just really diminishing, I guess you can say, when it comes to that gratifying feeling that you get from these legendary guns, only to get a blue gun that is substantially better eventually with in comparison to the legendary gun you got. As cool as it looks, you gotta get rid of it. There's nothing else you can do with it. So that's why the upgrading feature with the guns, as much it could be too much, right? But I think it could really make things a little more engaging, because it means you can really keep that gun a lot longer, right? Especially with the legendary guns, or just guns that you get from side quests that you grow sentimentally attached to, because the side quests or side stories are a lot better than the main story stuff. So I feel like those guns deserve to be there longer somehow. So that's why upgrading maybe certain aspects of these guns so you can keep them in your backpack a lot longer, and also you don't have to manage your backpack so much, because those, like I said, those guns get outdated so quickly. So that's why you're super incentivized, at least for me anyway, to buy the backpack upgrades early on in the game, which will cost you a lot of money as you go along, right? It's just an idea, because these guns just go away pretty much. They become irrelevant so quickly when you're in that early phase of things. Once you hit level 50 or whatever, which is the current level cap as I record this, that kind of goes away. But naturally, you're progressing. So early on in the game, in your first playthrough, and you want to keep all these guns as cool as they look, but you can't, because again, that happens. So I really feel like that feature would be really cool to be considered for future Borderlands games, at least in my opinion. It's just so that you can hold on to that gun you're really attached to a lot longer. At least though, they allow you to upgrade, or not upgrade, you visually change the aspects of your guns, like the skins and everything, or just visual customization in general is really cool. I think I forgot to mention that, so I definitely would like to say that it's really cool, you know, having to be able to change the things on your character and also the guns. You can also add little trinkets that can like kind of dangle around while you're, you know, blowing up bad guys and stuff like that. It's kind of a neat little addition, you know, just very cosmetic, and you can pick them up as part of the loot when you're going about playing the game.
Been waiting for this, Vault Thief!
So ultimately, the story kind of sucked, if I'm going to be honest, in comparison to Borderlands 2. And let's not forget the bugs and glitches. But that is definitely not without saying that the gunplay, the overall gameplay updates, the boss battles, the RPG aspect of things, level designs, graphics, sounds, the looting, everything else makes up for it many times over. The most important aspect of Borderlands here, which is the grinding for the awesome guns you want to get, is just funner than ever before. And that's where it really counts for me. Finally, we can now give this a score. So with all the things I've said about Borderlands 3, I loved it. I loved it overall. So everything weighed in here. I think this game really deserves a absolute 7.5 out of 10 from me. The negatives, you know, you can kind of get over it pretty much, right? And the polishing can be done through updates. So once that happens, it'll all go away eventually, right? And hopefully, right? And it's not to be worried about, I guess, because they're pretty active about it, and they've been doing all these updates to the game too, including the events like the Halloween one. I think that's happening right now, right? And of course, we have to look forward to all the other DLC that's going to happen and all that stuff. But I do want to say this. I really feel like 2K Games really had a hand with, you know, the rushed nature of this game. You know, maybe it explains the lower quality of the story and also the lack of polish in a lot of the, you know, bugs and glitches that we experience with this game. Maybe 2K Games had a hand in that when it comes to rushing things. So, you know, maybe that is a possibility. And if that is so, this game could have been perfect almost, but it just had to do it, right? If that's the case. But I'm just speculating. But what matters most, the main game here is worth every single penny that you put into, which is, you know, the old $59.99 for now. And that alone is very much enough. You know, you're gonna be playing it for a long time, including collecting all the guns, leveling up your character, and if you want to add even more, there's the story expansions, and also there's like just updates to the game, events, and all that fun stuff. And don't forget to you know, collect those codes from Randy Pitchford, Randy Pitchford himself, and you know, check out his Facebook, or just, you know, or not Facebook, excuse me, Twitter. And there are you know, other Twitter accounts that will retweet his codes and everything, so that way you can get a chance to get more of the legendary guns from the golden chest or whatever. And so there's also that to be had. My waiting, excitement, and anticipation pretty much really paid off, thanks to the quality of this game that it was able to give off, despite the, you know, faults and everything. So I can't really wait for the DLCs, like I said, to roll out. I'm ready because I got the digital deluxe edition. So you know, on the old PS4 Pro. So again, I am ready for those DLCs to roll out. So bring it on. So that's pretty much it for my review for Borderlands 3. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. And don't forget to hit the bell. That's how you get notified and stuff like that. Especially after you hit up those settings and stuff like that. When you hit the bell, that really makes sure that the notifications happen in the emails and stuff like that. I've heard that, you know, people, you know, don't see my videos pop up or whatever just because, you know what I mean? So that's why make sure you hit that bell to make that happen. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much. I would love to read those comments. You know, you're more than welcome to leave what you guys think of Borderlands 3 if you guys played it already. We'd love to check those out in the comment section below. I think the next one, honestly, it's gonna be Pokemon, but we'll find something in between. There's other stuff that I would like to work on as well. But anyways, I'd like to thank you guys again for tuning in for Borderlands 3 review. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.